Hey folks, Wren here, and today we are doing my February wrap-up. Now, February was a really busy month for me, and I didn't read as much as I wanted, but I think I still did pretty well. Now, the theme that I went for with February is female power, and I did that because February is my mother's birthday. So we're celebrating all things feminine. So in February, I ended up completing 12 books with a total page count of 2,840. I had 3 5 stars, 4 4 stars, 3 3 stars, and 2 2 stars. I also had 3 DNFs. This gave me an average star rating of 3.66. And the formatting of those, I had 5 physical reads, 3 ebooks, and 4 audiobooks. Now the DNFs I DNF'd Finding Audrey. I couldn't get over the fact that I thought this book would be an adult romance, but the main character was 14 years old. I couldn't get over it. Then I DNF'd Rosalind Palmer Takes the Cake. I just wasn't meshing with it, so it's more of a soft DNF. And then the third book I DNF'd was Royally Endowed. This started when the main character was a teenager, and I couldn't do it. So the first book I ended up finishing was Harriet Corber and the Bad Boy Parasolophagus. I'm still never going to get that title. This was by Chuck Tingle. This is a complete parody and just hilarious time. It is ripping off that particular wizarding school thing, and it does it in a hilarious way. And honestly, if it wasn't a parody, I probably wouldn't have continued with it. But because it was a parody, I had a great time. We also have 2 trans main characters, and even though you can tell that the author is not trans, the representation was still great, and these 2 trans characters are in a relationship with each other, and they have the conversation about gender affirming terms for their body parts, and I thought that was so important, and I just thoroughly enjoyed that aspect of it. But it is a really funny book. You know, there's sentient motorcycles, and the main character is a dinosaur. But I gave this 3 stars for the fun times. So if you saw my last wrap-up journal with me video, you might know what it means when I put a big strip of washi tape in the middle of a page. This means I read some manga. So the first manga that I read in February was one of my favorites, and that is Soul Eater, and I ended up reading volume 17. This was a really great volume for me. It had a Kaurna versus Black Star fight, and it was epic. I love Black Star. He was doing the most in this volume, and it was really, really great. We got to see more of Kid being tortured, and it's weird to say that it was like a fun torture, but it's just the way that Kid deals with things. It's a good time. Then we got what was inside the Book of Ebon, and there were 7 levels to the book, like the 7 levels of hell, and I thought that was really interesting. We went into the first level with all of our characters, and everyone's gender changed, and you know, Tsubaki was killing it. It was great. So that got a 5 star. The next manga that I read in February was Spy Family Volume 2. This kind of had the opposite effect of Soul Eater. For Spy Family Volume 2, I didn't find it as amazing as the first volume. It was still really great, and I do love these characters, but something about it was just not hitting all the right spots. I did really love seeing Anya finally start school and, you know, start this mission that she's on, that she kind of knows about, but you know. And it was fun seeing her interact with all the kids and figure out what is even going on at this school. But I did only give it 4 stars. Next book I read was Skullduggery Pleasant by Derek Landy. I have been wanting to read this for a really long time, but I kept putting it off, and I finally got to read it in February, and I'm really glad that I did. It was a really fun time, and I loved the world building of it. I loved the magic system. I thought that was really cool, and I loved the vibe of fun but creepy. It was just really entertaining. I read this in a single day. I was having so much fun. And one of the best things about this is the snark between our two main characters. They have the best relationship, and I am so here for it. I also really loved the concept of a given name, a taken name, and a true name. I thought that was just really fascinating, and it really speaks to trans people when, you have to change your name. So I really did appreciate that aspect of it. And I really loved seeing our main character find her taken name. Her taken name is awesome. And I have called her a baby badass because she is going to be the most badass person as she grows up. And I think it's great. So I ended up giving this 4 stars because it was great, but I was hesitant about giving it the 5. Next up, I read The Duchess Deal by Tessa Dare. I was in a historical mood, so I decided to read this, and I really loved the first 50% of this. I loved the tension between our two main characters. I love the marriage of convenience trope. I thought that was really fun. And I was really, really here for everything that was happening. And then at about the 50% mark, our characters got together, and I didn't care anymore because it seemed really quick and they just kind of lost their chemistry. So this only got a 3-star because of that. Next up, we have The Ballad of Black Tom by Victor LaValle. I did enjoy this, but I was also really confused about what was happening and what the message was supposed to be. I actually ended up looking at a Wikipedia page after I finished this to try and figure out what was going on and what it was supposed to be a retelling of, and I finally did understand what was happening. I did love the gritty vibe of everything, and I loved the kind of black power that was going on, but because I was confused, it only got 3 stars. And next up, we have Bitter by Akwaeke Emezi. This author can do no wrong in my eyes. I have read 3 of their books so far, and all of them have gotten 5 stars. So I think they are definitely in the running for one of my all-time favourite authors. Bitter is the kind of prequel to Pet, and it is about our main character, Bitter, who can make the monsters that she paints come to life, and those monsters will then hunt the human monsters. It's a really fascinating concept. We unfortunately didn't get as much detail about how she can do this as I wanted, but the writing just really sucks you in. We also have 2 queer black main characters, and that was a beautiful aspect of it as well. This got 5 stars, and I highly recommend everyone go read Akwaeke Emezi. I then decided to read Under Her Bed by Mina Shea. Just for the giggles, honestly, because I was like, this can't be good. It's 16 pages, and it is really just this woman having sex with the monster that's been under her bed since she was a child. It was a time. One of the things that did really weird me out is that she named the monster Rick, and that is my dad's name, so that was weird. But she just keeps giving this monster handjobs. It was strange, so I gave it 3 stars. Then I read a Goosebumps book by R.L. Stine, and it was The Haunted Mask. I was so excited for this, but as I was reading it, I was like, wow, this was so much better when I was a child. It definitely lost the creep factor, but I kept trying to remind myself that this is for children. So children would definitely find it scary, and I remember thinking that this was really scary. The concept is definitely creepy, but the story got really, really repetitive, and the main character's name was mentioned on every single page. So I got 2 stars because I was just annoyed. Then I read a poetry book called Women's Talk, and this is by some women in Central Australia, some Indigenous women. And this poetry collection is just, it's mainly focusing on mothers and their mothers and being a mother, but also just being a woman and anything that they wanted to write poetry about. It was a really lovely collection, and there was also a few poems that were written in the traditional Indigenous language of that language group. And I thought that was just really brilliant. And in the back of the book, there's actually a like a translation thing. I forgot what they're called. Glossary, maybe? Probably a glossary. But it was really good, and some of the poems are fantastic. So this got 4 stars because it was just, there's something about Indigenous Australian poetry that really hits hard for me. So then I read Go Deep by Rilsey Adams. This was steamy as anything, and I had a great time. I'm not usually one for the friends to lovers trope, but this one has kind of made me rethink that because it was really, really good. The chemistry between our main characters was great. I even just loved their friendship because they were very much like ride or die for each other. And then, you add in the sexual relationship to that, and it was very steamy, very good. But this book lost an entire star for the miscommunication trope. And just, they started acting like petty teenagers. So it only got the 4 stars. Then the last book I read for February was Caroline's Heart by Austen Chant. This was everything. I'm pretty sure this is my favourite book of the month. I loved it. It is a short novella, and it's really hard to explain, but it is about a trans cowboy, and he is kind of a little bit enamored by the witch that comes along, and the witch helps a lot of people. And she ends up helping him when he is fatally wounded, and they grow to really care about each other. The writing was just so hauntingly beautiful, and I highly recommend. So these are all the books I read in February. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in my next one.